Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices, and you can sign up for product alerts. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today it's all about the vampires, because they're going to be trying to bite you. Today we're looking at Bis 20, which I believe it translates into bite. And we're essentially trying to count to 20, but there's going to be all sorts of crazy things we have to do with the numbers when we get to them. Let's take a look. Bis 20 is a silly memory game where you're trying to count from 1 to 20, and at certain times you'll have to do certain things. Sometimes you'll be swapping numbers. Like when you get to 5, instead of saying 5, you say 13. When you get to 13, you say 5. Sometimes when you get to a number like 2, you have to do something different, like say cock-a-doodle-doo-doo, or stick out your tongue, or raise your arms. Now the main rules are cooperative, but I don't recommend you play that version of the game. It didn't shine like the competitive game, so I'm going to show you the competitive game. Also, the rules say you deal out all of the gems evenly. That's also not very good. The rules that come with this game are not good. The best way to play this game is to give everybody a certain amount of gems, and depending on the amount of players, basically deal out so there's about 10-ish gems, give or take a few total, and split them evenly between all the players. So like with 3 or 4 players, each play with 3 gems. If you run out of gems, you're out. You're trying to be the last one standing. At the beginning of the game, you're going to get 2 numbers that are randomly flipped. These numbers are swapped. Everyone in clockwise order will just count. 1, then the next player, 2, the next player, 3, the next player, 4. The next player, when they get to 5, they got to say 13. So they say 13. The next player says, well, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5 instead of 13. Then the next player goes 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. When you get to 20, we always just all clap. And again, each player is just saying one number and going clockwise. After the first round, you've got to remember this for the rest of the game. 5 and 13 are always swapped. Now, 2. When you get to 2, the person who gets to 2 has to yell it. By the way, there's a little number here, 5, and there's a book that tells you all the different things that you have to do. So, next player goes 1. Next player goes 2. Yells it. Next player 3, 4, 13. Right? Because you got to remember that you got to start doing this, right? So it's over and over. If someone screws up, everyone laughs, and then they get rid of a gem. If you're out of gems, you're out of the game. Last one standing wins. That's the whole game. So let me just show you some of the other crazy things you do. For example, if this was one, you'd have to sing the number. Here's whispering it. Here, instead of saying the number, you just knock once on the table. Here, you take a bow instead of saying a number. Here, you look like you have an idea. Here, you actually draw the number that you're supposed to draw on your table instead of saying it. Here, when you get to that number, you just say blue. Here, you wave. Now, very interesting I didn't tell you before is if somebody screws up and they lose a gem, you don't add a new number or a new task. So what happens is as players are getting messed up, you don't add anything new. But if we get all the way to 20, we then add another number and 1 card randomly. And since the patterns are the same the entire game, well, you tend to learn them because it's the same thing every time, and then you're incrementally just adding one thing. It's a ton of fun. Again, don't bother playing the cooperative version. Don't bother playing by the rules of all the gems. Do it like I said, and this game is so... Yeah, this game is just... The moment I played it, I just realized this game is just silly fun. I first played it with Ted Alspach, actually, the main designer and publisher for Bezier games. He does Superbia and all this stuff. Ted and I had played a pretty heavy economic game back a few months ago, back in November. And then late one night, he pulled one of these games out that came out of Essen last year, and I was just the most... This game is just silly, stupid fun. It just makes you laugh. It just makes you have fun. It's just awesome. You're counting together, but you're doing it competitively. Now, I mentioned in the overview that actually the main rules in the game are cooperative. It's rubbish. It's not really fun. Letting down the team isn't nearly as fun as watching someone screw up and they're trying to win. The competitive game's great, and especially only play with the little house rule. You don't play with all the gems. Just make it so it's like 9 or 10-ish gems total, split among amount of people. But when you're counting together, but you're doing it competitively, and you're trying to make sure that you don't screw up, and you're trying to be the last one standing, I like that you're learning what's going on, even when someone screws up. Because there's sometimes you'll be like, oh man, what the heck is number 11 again? And someone screws up, and everyone's like, no, it's scratch your head. And you're like, oh, good. I'm glad it wasn't me that got 11, but now I got to know it's 11. You know, someone might else bail you out because you might have forgotten something that somebody else forgot too, but now you know it. Now you're probably not going to forget it again. And you're always trying to do interesting things of like associating numbers with something. Like maybe if you have number 10 and that's the number that you're supposed to scream and you yell 10. Like in my brain, I'm thinking a 10-year-old is just gonna have a temper tantrum and they're gonna scream, right? And so different things like that, you start to like learn how to associate numbers with certain actions. And it's really a cool thing. Now when someone screws up, I showed you there's no new card that comes out. And that's great too, because it doesn't continue to get harder unless you've made it all the way through. Because the game is like self-balancing in that way. It's a really clever, simple mechanism, but it works so well that when someone screws up, you're reinforcing those things without adding a new piece of complexity. And when you do, it's just one card at a time. So the repeating patterns makes remembering easy. I don't like memory games. I don't. There's like one memory game that I love, that's Memoir. I'll talk about that in a minute. But like because this has a repeating pattern that you're doing the same thing over and over, but you're only adding one new thing each time, you'll be amazed at what you can remember going back and forth. Oh man, it's also great with a 2-player game. It is just cutthroat. It's just so fun. Now, I just mentioned Memoir is like my favorite memory game, and this is similar to that with that patterns that I was just talking about, but it's easier to teach because you don't have sort of the sort of abstract aspect. And I probably still like Memoir a little better than this, but this game is fantastic. So on the negative, let's say I already talked about the rules and the numbers of gems are too long. The cooperative game is just kind of rubbish. Play the sort of house-ruled competitive. Now, the competitive game is an official variant in the rules. They just play with too many gems. So the rules are not very good. The game is better than it looks on paper because the rules just don't make it that good. Number 2 is another big negative is it's hard to play this game more than once, especially in a row. You can't play this game twice in a row because your brain just gets so confused of what was 11 last game and what was 11 this game, and it just isn't as fun because you'll be screwing up for stupid reasons like that. Now last night, for the first time, I tried to play it for the first game of the night and then the last game of the night, where there was probably 3 hours in between, and we played a bunch of games in between, and it was better. It worked. But still, we screwed up a little bit more than normal. We had to think harder than normal. It might have just been because we were tired, but also because you still have some residue of the game you played a few hours ago. So it's one of those games you play it once, play it again another day. But the good thing is you're going to want to play it right away again. And this is actually one of those games that's as fun to watch as it is to play. If you don't like memory games and you don't want to play silly party games, give this to your family and watch them play it. You'll have just as much fun watching them as you will playing it. Some of the cards are a little hard to interpret, and you got to look at the little rule book and see things. Some of the cards and illustrations could have been a little more clear. And the biggest hard thing here is I bought this game off of Amazon.de, which is one of the ways to import games from Europe because I live in North America. And this is a game that's really hard to get. In fact, everyone I've played this with has bought a copy, and sometimes it takes months to come, and they've been out of stock recently. Actually, they just got theirs last night, which is why I played it again. But it's a really hard game to get in North America. I really hope somebody picks this up and brings it over because it is so awesome. Biz 20, for all these reasons, it is an absolute blast, and it's getting a Saxophone Serenade because it's definitely staying in my gaming library. Let's hit it. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table to a high-quality gaming solution, they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with their amazing, thematic, premium stitch edge mats from noted board game artists like Vincent Dutray, collapsible cup holders, and really cool accessories, it's a complete system that upgrades every game you play. Go to GameToppersLLC.com or click the link below.